Working with data is one of the easier things you can do in computer science, but some parts might get just a bit complicated or a bit tricky. You will come across some complications when you are trying to move data around, also known as the ETL process. And the ETL process is finding data from whatever source, example the internet, or getting data from transactions, organizing the data, cleaning the data so the data can be usable or the data can meet operational need. And you want to take that data and insert that data into your database table. So in this video, I will show you how to find data from the internet and put the data into some database tables. So the first thing we want to do is find the data from the internet. What we want to search for in Google is Ontario top baby names, and let's click on baby names 2019. So click on the first link that says data.ontario.ca, and let's search for the .cvs file. So click on the download button, and then we want to open it up, and we have our Excel file opened up, and inside of the Excel file you would see a list of names. So we want to take this data and insert it into our database table. So for this video I will be using Microsoft SQL Server. And by the way, this program that I'm using, it's free. All you have to do is go to the Microsoft website and just download this program. We're going to click on connect. So I'm just going to bring this over a bit. So let us create a database to store our tables. So the command to do that is create database and the database name. So let's name our database top male names 2019. So this is the command to create a database in SQL Server. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. So we want to execute this program, and in the bottom, if your command is successful, it would say command completed successfully, or else you will get an error message. So now we have our database created. Let us use the database. Two ways you can use the database. You can use the database from here. You can either click on this and then you can use the database, or you can use the command to use the database. And the command for that is use and the name of your database. So let's just copy and paste and execute. So now you would see that the database has changed. So this is our database. We created the database and now we are using the database. The next thing we want to do is create some tables. When you are finding data from whichever source you collect the data from or retrieve the data from, it's recommended to use a staging table before you put all of the data into the permanent table. And you do that just to make sure that the data is clean, the data is mapped and transformed so it can meet operational needs. So let us create a staging table to put our data in. And the command to do that is create table and the name of our table. Actually, it's a male names staging table. To use the open and closing brackets. So we're going to give our columns the same name that's in our Excel file. You don't have to, but I prefer to do it that way just so I can stay on track. And here is going to be an integer, and we also have a column name, so we're going to name our column name as well, and the names is going to be varchar or varchar, and we want to give about 50 characters. And then our last column is frequency, and that is also going to be an integer. So once you are done, so we're going to run this command, click on execute, and now we have created our table. A lot of people do this. And the name of the table. So copy, paste. I try to not use this command, especially if there's a lot of data inside of my database or a lot of tables inside of my database. I want to get an error saying this table already exists, so I make sure that I don't delete important data. But if you are new and if your database does not have any table, the drop command is fine. If I run this create statement again, I should get an error message saying the table name already exists. Now, if I run it with the drop command, what it's going to do is it's going to delete that table and create another table. the command is successful. So it's all up to you. It's preference if you want to use the drop command or not. So now we are finished creating our table. Let us put some data into our table. So to input some data in our table, we want to use the bulk insert command and the name of the table. After the bulk insert, you want to specify the location of the file. So to find the location of that file, you go to File, you're going to click, and then you want to say copy path to clipboard. So we want to take the data from, so inside of the single quotes, you want to insert the location of the data file. So I'm just going to paste it here. Okay, so now that we have the location of the file, we also want to use the word with and open closing brackets. And inside of the open closing bracket, we are going to give our command. So let's go back to our Excel file. When you want to put in data from whichever source to get it from, you don't want to put in dead data or useless data into your database. So if we look at line number 1, and number 2, we have data that we don't really need in our table. So we want to exclude row number 1, row number 2 from our table. So start from line number 3. And to do that, we say first row and equal to 3. So once you specify which row you want to start from, you want to tell the program which type of file you're working with. So the file we are working with is a CSV file, which is our Excel file. So if you're working with a document, which is a .doc, you would want to put .doc as the format. But our format here is a CSV. So we're just going to let our program know that it's a CSV file. The next thing you want to do is a row terminator. So most programs, when they reach the end of a row, they tend to terminate the program or just stop. So we want to tell the program that when you reach a new line, go back and start from the beginning until there is no more rows to input. And to do that, the command is row terminator, and our row terminator here is \n. And I don't want to put all of this data into my table. When you reach 20, just stop inputting data. It's up to you. You can exclude this and put all of the data into your table, but just remember, the more data you put into your table, the more space it will take up on your system. For this video purposes, I'm only just going to input 20 rows into my table. Let us run this command. Hopefully we don't get any error. What it's saying here is that cannot load because the file is open. So if you get this error, that means that the Excel file that we are using over here is open. So let's close this file. So now that our file is closed, if we run the command again, it should work. Let's press execute, and you see that we have 18 rows inserted into our table. So now let's take a look at the data we have inputted in our table from the Excel file. Open up the Excel file one more time so we can compare the data. If you look in our staging table, the exact data what's in our Excel file, it's also transferred over to our staging table, and all the data is there. Remember, we wanted to stop at line 20 because we specified that last row would be 20 on our Excel file. If we look at row 20, and in our database we have the exact same thing, so it did stop at line number 20. We have our data inside of the staging table. What we want to do is take the data from the staging table and move it to the permanent table, and that is part of the ETL process. Let us create our permanent table. So now we are finished writing it out. Let us run the command. So it tells us that our command completed successfully. So now that we have our permanent table created, we want to move the data from the staging table to the permanent table. And to do that, we use the insert command. Insert into, and the name of our table. So in this case, our table name is Top Baby Names 2019. So insert into Top Baby Names 2019 P. We want to select the column names from our staging table. So before I do that, let me run the select command again here. I'm going to execute it. So at the bottom, you see in our staging table, we have the year, name, frequency. So we want to select the columns that we want. You can specify the year and you can leave it as that. But for this video, let's select everything. So we want to select the year, the name, and frequency, and we need to specify where we want to get that data from. So in our case, we want to select it from the staging table, and our staging table name is right here. So we're going to copy and paste it here, and that's all you have to write to move the data. So let's execute this statement, and if we look at the messages at the bottom, it says 18 rows affected. So that means that we move 18 rows from the staging table to our permanent table. We can check to see if the data has moved with the select command. So select star from, and so select star from our newly table we just created, and we should get the same data. So you see we have. So that's all for this video today. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and I will keep posting any and everything that have to do with computer science.